Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, 1 year after Freddie Gray's death, has Baltimore changed for the better? And our primary election review. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by Republican activist Jerry Cave, immediate past president of Progressive Maryland, Elbridge James, former Republican candidate for county council, Uncapher, and political strategist Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for 21 This Week, next. When police in Baltimore arrested a low-level drug dealer a year ago, none would have thought that his death from injuries sustained at the time of his arrest would spark a nationwide debate over police brutality and demands for a reform of the criminal justice system. Elbridge, Dan Roderick's, writing in the Baltimore Sun, said that Baltimore citizens felt that the weight of the anniversary of Freddie Gray's death as they went to the polls on Election Day, and that a new class of political leaders has emerged to help solve the issues festering for 40 years or more. But Roderick's also concluded that the people of Baltimore must look to solve their issues without relying on the governor and the state legislature. Is he right?
Incorrect. Very much incorrect. 40 years of abuse of the state government working in collusion with the politicians in Baltimore to siphon off money that should have gone to urban renewal, housing projects, school projects, and other things for the inner harbor, okay, and for business in Baltimore. Now they're saying, now that the fact that this thing is festered to the point where it is bubbling over, oh, you'll get no help from the state? Oh no, contraire. The state has to have a part in this. It is the city's responsibility. It is the citizens' responsibility. All of us agree on that. But the state cannot, say they have no hand in this and won't contribute.
I want to clarify something. You said for 4 years.
40.
For 40 years.
Yeah.
40 years.
40 years, primarily under Democratic administrations in Annapolis.
Democratic
Democratic
administrations both in Baltimore City and Annapolis. I'm not taking a softball on this. We're saying the citizens need better. I don't care who provides it. Everyone has to now pitch in.
All right, Susan, can Baltimore solve these problems by electing a new class of leadership? Is it that simple?
I don't know. I think that sitting here in Montgomery County, it's easy to pontificate when we don't know anything. But Ms. Pugh, while in the legislature, formed really close friendships with the now Republican county execs in Harford and Howard County. And so there is a thought that they will work with her, give her guidance. She has got a great reputation before her time in the legislature. She was on the city council, and I can only hope that Ms. Pugh, in conjunction with new people on the county council or city council, will move forward. And that's
Robin, I want to ask you a question. I mean, isn't this the whole point about local government? That you have to have accountability, that the citizens have to demand accountability, and that's what Roderick was talking about.
That is absolutely right, because there's no mystery why this happened. This happened because the police force was not professionally trained and was not professionally managed. There are many cities with horrible crime rates which have a more professional police force. That does not mean that you take money and you use this issue as a way to throw money into 10 different things that really have very little to do with whether or not the police are going to throw somebody in the back of a paddy wagon and kill them.
Jerry.
This is just shocking. The problems in Baltimore are not the police department. The problems in Baltimore are systemic. There are families without fathers. There are families without jobs. It is systemic. And you can't have a good society when you have broken families, no jobs. And it isn't money, Elbridge.
Education.
They put more money in education per student than they do in Montgomery County.
We're not
saying, wait a minute. Okay. You had your piece. I've had to. This is like listening to the choir on the Titanic, and you're out of tune. It's unbelievable None of this, the politicians, these people have to change. They have to stop the crime, the drug use, and stop blaming the police. The police are the only thing that keep it from total chaos. And who do you think calls the police? They don't call them out of Potomac and Bethesda. They call the police in those parts of Baltimore that they're complaining about.
But
But
Jerry,
you
I've
asked about
lived
the
in
police. It's
cities.
more than the
excuse me,
police.
I've
It's more
lived
than
in
the
cities
police.
where when you called the police, you couldn't be completely sure of what was going to happen. And I've
Correct.
lived in cities with very, very serious crime where the police were professional. So and you know, you can talk to anybody who lived in Brooklyn in the 70s, and they'll tell you that the crime rate was something else.
And
but
I
the
think
police
now-
were not doing this, and we had all the same systemic problems.
I'm going to wrap this up. The issue, Dan Roderick is absolutely correct. The citizens of Baltimore have to be accountable and demand accountability from their government. But at the same time, you're correct, and everyone else here is correct in saying that there have to be changes made into the police force and how they operate, and and demand good government for their citizens.
And there is a
Susan,
new
Don't lump me-
elected body to get it all started.
Don't lump me in with that. I'm sure the police department can be improved, but that is not the problem in Baltimore.
That's not the
that's
only
the Freddie
problem.
Gray
It's not the
problem.
only problem in Baltimore.
Lost-
In the end, we're going to go to our congressional races now. In the end, Democrats in Maryland decided to offer an all-male congressional delegation for election in November as Chris Van Hollen defeated fellow Congresswoman Donna Edwards in the primary for the U.S. Senate. On the Republican side, State Delegate Kathy Szeliga won its primary. Robin, what's your perspective on this election?
First of all, I want to say that I think Kathy Szeliga is a very good candidate, and I'm proud to have her where she is. However, I should say that I am feminist to the bone, but I do not agree with deciding somebody's vote on the basis of their sex. I don't believe on deciding on hiring somebody ahead of time on the basis of their sex. Now, most of the time in my personal life, people have decided it would be a man that they would hire. But I must say, I don't see it as an all-male delegation. I see it as a group of individuals, and you decide who you want to vote for.
Actually, that was the whole reason I asked the question that way.
Of course.
Because that was the basis of Donna Edwards' campaign, that they needed to have, and they were electing an all-woman delegation. Susan, but is the party going to be hurt by the lack of unity from Donna Edwards and Chris Van Hollen?
It's a long time till November. We Democrats tend to get back together. And an interesting note about the election: Congressman to elect. I'm just looking forward.
Senator-elect, is that what you meant?
Senator-elect, 438,000 votes, and Kathy got 131,000 votes. I think that says it right there. She has an uphill battle. If only his voters come out. And in the fall, I think that Chris Van Hollen is one of the most astute politicians. He is going to reach out to Donna Edwards. I was at the Kiss and Make Up party last night, and there was a whole lot of making up and not as much hatred, and it hurts to lose. Senator Mikulski said that last night. There are a couple of losers on this stage. It hurts to lose, but you get over it.
Well, that's very true, but the fact is, and we all know the voter registration in Maryland is heavily tilted Democratic blue, and the Republican candidate.
By choice. No, by demand.
I understand that, but the fact is that a Republican has been elected statewide recently.
Correct.
And if you think you're just going to run on the coattails of Larry Hogan, you're wrong. You've got to bring something new and dynamic to the race. If you run the same traditional stuff, you might as well.
But Van Hollen here is his own man, unlike with the governor's race.
Yeah, all right,
Van
Jerry,
Hollen's his
30
own
seconds.
man.
In presidential election years, so many more Democrats come out than do Republicans. It isn't an uphill battle. I don't know of an angle that's steep, but that's what Kathy has. We couldn't have a more fabulous candidate than her, but it's a very steep battle.
And
Chris Van Hollen is exactly what we don't want in Washington. This guy is a lifelong politician, the complete
All right, Jerry.
opposite of what
I'm gonna
we're
wrap it
supposed
up.
to have.
All right, let's go on to another race, the Congressional District 4 race. Elbridge, former Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown staged what many thought was a political comeback by winning the Democratic nomination in CD4, Donna Edwards' seat that she vacated.
Yes.
Was his victory over former State's Attorney Glenn Ivey a surprise?
It was a surprise to me. I backed Pena Melnick, and Glenn Ivey is a friend of mine. But the problem you had is that you had a number of candidates that couldn't overcome Brown's name recognition. And Brown, for once, stepped out under the shadow of somebody else and decided to run in his community. And so the people trust him. This was a race among friends.
He was known as a very good delegate when he was in the
Correct.
General Assembly.
He ran well, and I'm not disputing that. Again, Pena Melnick was more of a Mikulski type of a fighter, and she was good. Glenn Ivey, he was, an attorney, and he didn't have that. But I'm saying he was the state's attorney. He didn't have that name in terms of getting down into the weeds and getting your voters to come out for you.
Ivey and Melnick are also from the very same geographic area,
Yeah.
and Brown's former legislative district is the heart of that district.
Correct.
And I ran into Anthony last night, and I commented on his beautiful tan. Nobody worked harder than Anthony Brown in this election. He was knocking on doors. He spent every day of early voting out there. He deserves to win this race.
He did.
Well, he deserved to win that race. Jerry.
To the next question.
Well, I think it's nice now that he's elected in office. He's in a much better position to get donations to pay off that $400,000 or $800,000 he owes in loans to his campaigns. So some people, like Hillary's running to stay out of prison, and I think this guy's running to stay out of debt.
Jerry, I got one. I was going to ask you about the Republican candidate,
I'm glad you asked me
George
about that.
McDermott, who was elected, and you get about 10 seconds to wrap it up.
Well, George McDermott is really probably the most and least interesting person that ran for office because this guy demonstrated the judgment that first he loses as a Democrat, then he comes back, he runs as a Republican. There were 5 times as many people that voted a Democrat in that one. In fact, there were more people in the hangar with me watching Donald Trump on Sunday, than voted for him in that entire district. So he's got.
Thank you, Jerry.
He's got
we actually have a
vertical climb on his election.
We actually have a congressional race that might be interesting. Congressional District 6, former Reagan official Ami Hober managed to win a very closely contested Republican primary race to challenge incumbent Congressman John Delaney. Robin, can Ms. Hober challenge in the general election?
Of course. Why wouldn't she? You look at her track record, you look at what she has been talking about, and it makes a great deal of sense. I was just telling Jerry earlier, one of the 2 politicians that actually had an impact on my life was Ronald Reagan. That is the president that Ami worked for. She has stands on a number of things, including security, including personal rights and privacy, and I think she's a pretty impressive person.
Susan, is Congressman John Delaney vulnerable to challenge from Ms. Hober?
I don't think so. A couple of reasons. One of the things that could have been used against him is that he doesn't live in the 6th. Well, she lives just a couple doors down from him. So she, like John Delaney, can look across the street. The other thing is, before she moved to Maryland 20 years ago, she was the leading person for the ERA for this geographic area. So I'm sure if she were to win, she isn't going to, I'm sure the Republicans will love that she is an ERA long-standing advocate, and she can work on that in
Just to let you know how
Thank you,
big-hearted
Jerry.
we are,
She's
if
spending a lot
anybody
of
can
time
win
on
this
it.
race,
We got to wrap it up.
it's her.
Jerry. When we come back from this short break, is it too soon to buy tickets for the Trumpathon in Cleveland? And what happened in the Congressional 8 district, the district race in Congressional 8? Stay tuned. God, you got me all. And welcome back. We got all kind of things going on here. We're fighting amongst ourselves. The most closely watched primary contest occurred in Congressional District 8, where 9 candidates ran in the Democratic primary to fill the vacant seat of Chris Van Hollen. The political talent in this race was amazing. There were 3 members of the General Assembly, a former White House aide, 1 high-profile media star, and a gazillionaire businessman willing to spend freely. In the end, Maryland State Senator Jamie Raskin pulled out the victory. Senator Raskin received 38,000 votes, while the high-profile duo of David Trone and Kathleen Matthews had a combined 58,000 votes. Did Raskin win, or did Trone and Matthews cannibalize each other's votes?
All of the above. And as much as I dislike communists like Raskin, I am glad that democracy won out and the election couldn't be bought. But if either Matthews or Trone, without the other, had run, I think they could have given him a good run for his money, because politics is often determined on television. But he was able to get his people out. He won the election. That's the kind of people that district want. And there you have it. And David Trone's out $12 million and still counting. That's quite an accomplishment.
The wine will go up by 10 cents, that's all.
Susan, what's your
He
take
has more
on the
spillage
race?
than most people spend on a campaign.
Let's talk about this. Was democracy served by David Trone self-funding his race to the tune of nearly $13 million?
Democracy, the way it's looking this year, on the presidential level and the congressional level, people think that they can buy a race. We talked last week about people who self-fund. Only 11% of people who self-fund win. And I think this is true. Jamie Raskin had supporters who loved him. Honestly, they were at the polls. They were knocking on doors. They were making phone calls. However, you place that against the Trone people, and I talked to a Trone.
It's not just the Trone people. You can't discount the votes that Kathleen Matthews got.
Oh, no.
There was a solid
Yeah, I
block
just
of
wanna
votes
make
for
one-
a conservative moderate. And
Let me
that
finish.
was Kathleen Matthews.
Let me
There was a
finish.
Kathleen Matthews and David Trump.
Yes.
58,000 votes went to those 2 candidates.
Yes, but what I was trying to
38,000 went to Raskin. So you can't say
let me tell you about Trone though. The difference was his campaign. You can buy only to a point, and you have to have enthusiasm. When I was at the poll on election day, there was a paid worker there. At other polls also, they didn't even approach voters. It was a job to stand there. Same thing
Susan,
is
you're missing the forest. You're missing the forest
No.
for the trees. Elbridge.
You all are all missing the problem, or part of the situation. The fact is that you had a number of delegates running for this position. And what you had is that people start cannibalizing. It wasn't just Trone and Matthews that were cannibalizing. It was that every person lost votes to Jamie lost votes because of the other delegates and House members that were in the race. Jamie also probably did not do the best job, or he calculated that he didn't get up counting like he should, and some people just got in certain sections and stuff. That's democracy. That's how it works.
You know what else happened is that Trone and Matthews not only spent a lot of money on television, but a big part of their message was against the NRA. And Raskin didn't get a chance to make that as much. So maybe he got the pro-NRA vote in the
Well,
Democratic
there is
Party.
another point in this race. Trone and Matthews spent a lot of money, and their campaign was off-the-shelf Democratic. And if you looked at their messages and their campaign literature, it was nothing local. And Jamie Raskin made it all local. And the enthusiasm he had was
Matthews and
amazing.
Trone were also clearly pandering on the issues.
Well, regardless, the fact is that Senator Raskin did win the election, did a great job in a multi-candidate race. All accounts, he's getting 1 vote more.
And he got a whole lot more than
the
one
next
vote.
guy. Well, now let's take a turn and look at the presidential race. And more, it looks as if businessman Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee, and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will get the Democratic nod. How comfortable are you with these 2 choices? Susan?
As a Democratic activist, I am very happy with Secretary Clinton, who will go on and get the Democratic nomination. And although I have no beef in the Republican side, I'm happy too with the way that race is going. Ultimately, it's the best that we could ask for.
Robin?
I have to say, it's not a good year for me. What can I tell you? First of all, I should start out by saying that I really had a lot of good feelings about Hillary Clinton until that last scandal. As somebody who had a son in Afghanistan, the fact that the Secretary of State couldn't be bothered to use a secure phone for her emails strikes me as absolutely beyond the pale. However, having said that, Donald Trump is not my candidate. So I'm still hoping that something happens so that's not the case.
Elbridge.
Oh, this is 1968 all over again. And
It
it's
is.
not the Democratic side, it's the Republican side that's going to suffer on this. But let's bring it up to today's standard. The problem we have is that we have an America that's hurting. And for good or bad, the Donald is tapping into that. And I think he's abusing it because he's not going to come up with a solution. And all our parties need to work on working with those who don't have so that, in fact, this can be a better America. Donald's not going to do it, though.
Jerry.
Working class and middle class Americans have been sold out by both parties. The GOP donors want the cheap labor, whether it's insourced or outsourced, and the Democratic Party wants the even cheaper votes. The people are mad, and they have every right to be, and they will accept Donald Trump, warts and all, because in the hope that the guy who at least had the courage to raise the questions will address it and answer it. And the reason we can do all of the things he says is because we have all of the leverage and international trade to do this. Those countries have to have access to our retail markets. If Trump threatens that, he'll get whatever he wants. And we can solve the immigration just like Eisenhower did in the 50s so easily it didn't even raise into national media.
So the answer to the question was you're happy with the choice.
I'm ecstatic with Trump, and I'm even more ecstatic with Clinton because when she gets indicted, you guys are going to be in even more trouble.
You know, that's a great way to wrap this segment up because I don't have any idea who's going to win the nomination in the Republican Party. It's still undecided. It certainly looks as if Mrs. Clinton has the Democratic nomination wrapped up, but it's going to be a fun number of months and weeks going to the two conventions and seeing what occurs there. When we come back, stay tuned for Parting Shots. Now with Parting Shots, Susan Heltemes.
The race that we just saw in a couple of cases this week, whether it was the 8th Congressional District race or the U.S. Senate race, it's going to be nothing in comparison to the race that's going to take place to replace Jamie Raskin in the Senate. There are people, Valerie Irvin has already stepped out, many UGs have come forward. She's dropped out of the council and off the school board, so I don't think she's it. But you're going to hear a lot of fireworks for that replacement.
Thank you, Susan. Robin Uncapher, your parting shot.
Okay, today I read in the Washington Post that Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada has come out against paying ransoms to hostages. Now, Canada in the past has paid ransoms for hostages. The United States and the UK both are strongly against this and consequently have fewer hostages. I am very happy to hear that Canada has come forward this way and is asking some of our allies, such as France, which is still paying ransoms, that this simply doesn't work. $125 million they know last year went to ISIS and Al-Qaeda due to this paying of ransoms. So I'm happy to see a change.
Thank you. Elbridge James, your parting shot.
My parting shot is to give a hip hip hooray and a great thank you to our Board of Election employees and volunteers on Election Day. You talk about what makes America great. Look at the volunteers and the workers that get us citizens to the polls and allow us to elect officials to govern us and keep us safe. I applaud those folks. I was a chief election judge this year, watched Americans at work, and watched into the midnight hours as that staff collected all those ballots and made sure that everyone's vote counted. I appreciate their work.
Thank you, Elbridge. Jared Cave, your parting shot.
Almost everything Donald Trump stands for stands on the shoulders of Pat Buchanan. Almost every technique he used to win so far was first used by Howard Stern, especially personal attacks. The nice guy Republicans had no idea what hit them and no idea how to hit back. Nice guys do indeed finish last when it comes to fights in politics. Even Trump phenomenon denier Donnie Deutsch on Morning Joe this morning realized that not only is Trump going to win the primary, but going to win the general election. The substance is Buchanan, the style is Stern, the talent was Trump, because after all, politics is show business.
Thank you, Jerry. And thank
Right.
all of the panel for being here. And thank the audience for tuning in each and every week. Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken. And remember, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and you can watch us on YouTube. Good night.